So there's been a video going around the internet where a young man is giving his opinion on what happened in South Carolina, as well as the number of shootings that have occurred around the country involving African American males and white police officers. And his basic argument in the video is that young men, well, let me back up. He starts the video by explaining that he was just stopped by a police officer and that he kept both his hands on the steering wheel and he said, yes, massa. I mean, not yes, massa. Yes, sir. No, sir. That he did everything in compliance with the officer's instructions. And as a result of that, he left the interaction with the officer unscathed. And he's quick to point out that he's an African American male and that the police officer was white. And his point is that if we simply do what we're supposed to do and comply with the instructions of the police officer and act in a respectful manner, that we won't be the victims of police brutality. That all of this can be avoided by simply complying. That's his argument. Of course, it's stupid. It's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard, of course. And initially, I didn't pay much attention to it because I, see and hear stupid things on social media all the time. The reason why I'm saying something now about it is because a number of individuals whom I respect are basically in agreement with this young man and what he's saying. And I just have to say that non-compliance with an officer, not doing what the officer says while against the law and while deserving of arrest and punishment, in no way, shape, or form comes close to justification for being shot. Deadly force has to be the absolute last option a police officer employs. Not the first, not the second. The absolute last option an officer employs is to draw his service revolver and fire upon a citizen. That has to be the last thing that he decides to do. And in conjunction with it being the last thing to do, it has to be because the individual poses an imminent threat to him and or the immediate surrounding community. That's it. You don't get to pull your weapon and fire because he didn't say yes, sir, no, sir, because he didn't, quote unquote, comply, because he acted belligerent, because he didn't follow your instructions to a T. That in no way, shape, or form justifies it. If he did run away, if he did not put his hands up, if he cussed you out, if he stood in your face and screamed NWA's, fuck the police, word for word, verbatim, and then took off running, you still don't have a reason or justification to shoot him. And for anyone to suggest that you somehow do, or that the individual is somehow to blame, or that we should somehow expect the end result to be murder or something bad because you didn't comply, that is just the height of ignorance. And for my friends on here who I have a great deal of respect for to somehow be in agreement with such an idiotic statement or point of view, well, that's disappointing. That's really disappointing. It reminds me of maybe about 30 or so years ago, maybe even a little longer than that. There was an argument going around in terms of as it relates to sexual assault. And the basis of the argument was aimed at women, and it told women, well, you need to stop dressing so provocatively. Stop wearing skin-tight clothing. Stop staying out certain hours of the night or being by yourself and drinking and flirting unnecessarily so with men, because if you do and then they end up raping you, well, if you would have just dressed the proper way, if you would have just acted the proper way, this wouldn't have happened. And those of us with not even half a brain, with 25% of a functioning neocortex said, are you retarded? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're blaming the victim for being sexually assaulted because she wore something or didn't act in a way that is quote unquote proper, that she's somehow to blame for being sexually assaulted. Are you stupid? Well, that same line of thinking is juxtaposed with the argument that this young man is making in regards to the behavior of African American men. It doesn't matter if she stood out in the middle of 38th and High School Road, stark naked, doing the Cabbage Patch. That doesn't justify a man raping her. And in no way, shape, or form can she in any way be blamed for that. Yes, she's guilty of indecent exposure and disorderly conduct, and she should be punished appropriately for that. That in no way, shape, or form justifies or clears the individual who raped her. None. And in that same line of thinking, anyone who thinks that a police officer is somehow justified in shooting a man in the back 8 times, then running to retrieve his taser, running back and planting it on the man, and continuing with a vicious lie about what actually happened, is somehow justified in those actions because the man chose to run away or rip out tasers and flee, is retarded. That's all I got, man.